Ndazalwa kwindawo encane e-Eastern Cape and it's called Kendon-on-Sea. It's between P and Port Alfred. Ndikhule between that place and Port Elizabeth, Cape Town, Western Cape. Cape Flats back then, it was a place eyayigcwele gangsters and very rough. I remember you would go to school as a child. Just in the street, you'll have to udlula kwisidumbu or a mad person otshisiweyo as a young kid, and you go to school with that trauma. So it was a very challenging years because the violence all over the place.
Imaphi ama-gangsters bewa prominent ngalezo khathi lawo bewala kakhulu?
They were Americans, hard livings, gangsters like that. Gangsters azikhona ke back then, ezazi-popular, yabona, ezazinamandla, yabona, in kwi-Cape Coloured area, I mean kwi-coloured areas. But in our township, you will find gangsters ekuthiwa ama-scorpion, ama-red scorpions and stuff, yabona, ama-mongrel mafias. As I grew up, I had this uncle of mine who was in the army. Yabona la army yakudala le yamabhulu. I got a love for guns at a very young age, and I had access to them. I used them. I remember in my high school days, I was in and out of classrooms, taken from classroom to interrogation rooms by police. As I was saying to you, that I started speaking out against gangsterism and drugs at the age of 15, 16. I hated drugs and gangsterism with passion, and I still do. I believe that those things are not supposed to be part of our society. And as sikhula, gangsters zithola amandla, financially and otherwise, zibanama connections, and I embraced Islam as a religion at 14, 15, and maybe it was that influence of Islamic religion. Now, I was not a favorite for the gangsters because I always speak up against gangsterism. So the gangsters ziyayibona lento and ziyayiva, and they don't like it. So I ended up being an enemy gangsters. And I remember two of them, they went to school. It was on a Friday to go and attack me. And it was serious because they wanted to shoot me. But unfortunately, they didn't. I fought back, and I'm still very sorry for the family of the victim. These guys came, were in a bus stop, and we could hear them, and people were crying, and run, like they were talking. Remember, as I was saying to you, that I was already a target or targeted by gangsters. So wherever I go, there is a firearm with me. Then this guy came. I heard the gunshot, and it's only then that I realized, but something is really wrong now. I hear the gunshot somewhere there, and school children were crying and running all over the place. And these guys came to me. He was a gang leader, feared by everybody in the township. I'm talking about someone who killed a young boy of 11, in front of everybody, before the incident, as an attack. And nobody was able to assist the police investigation. Nobody saw nothing. That's the community we're living in. Even today, that's what happens in our township. I don't blame them because they are fearful. These gangsters can be very, very, very brutal sometimes. So someone like that to come and attack you at school. So this guy came to me, and then I was ready. When I saw him, I was just ready. I knew that I'm going to die or I'm going to kill someone today. And unfortunately, but I was very fast. And I think firearm because I was just coming from school. Then and then he fell down, and everybody was screaming and running. I remember there was this one teacher. He was watching this whole thing. I remember after that he called me to say that, son, I have seen everything, don't worry. Come, just give me the gun. Then I dismantled the gun, and with tears now, because I can see the impact of what I have done. Shocked, worried, scared. And I handed the gun over to him, and I was taken back to school. And they asked me to wait for the police, but I didn't. Realizing that the gangsters might come now whilst I'm still here and I don't have a gun, then I went. After that, my cousin took me to the police station where I was charged for an attempted murder, possession of illegal firearm. That was my first time to see the inside of the cell at 16, and I was broken. I knew that my life has taken another direction from now. I was never sentenced for that case, and I went away to register kwesinye isikolo. Wasoqalile unyaka kwenzeka kwale incident. I had to change igama lesikolo because I had to have my identity now ifihlwe ingabonakali lento ingaveli. Yabona, the only person I still remember him even today who knew at that school, it was the principal of that school. It was the principal of that school because my family went to him to tell him because there was no place for me in any other schools. Then we went to approach him and he allowed me. And wayifihla zange ayithethe noyithethe ukuthi kwenzekile actually, because he was given everything, like the background, where I do come from, what happened, why ndiqala isikolo in the phakathi enyakeni, everything. I was seen as a PAGAT member, although I never joined PAGAT. PAGAT was an organization in Cape Town, in the Cape Flats, that called itself People Against Gangsterism and Drugs. You know what happened? As I always say, this thing get drugs, it comes from a very long way. This thing of evelayo ngokuthi some allegations akhoyo or government is, or some government officials are aware of this and all these kind of things. We knew this thing many years ago and we're talking about these things, but abantu babesithi siyahlanya. What happened, upon talking to a lot of, or to many guys that were coming from exile as the APLA, babe nale problem kwa from exile, that some of the members of MK, I was not there, but it's the information that is all over. Some of the members of the MK were used or were peddling drugs from the exile, and they were like assisted by imali eyayisenziwa through drugs. That is why most of them, they never struggle as APLA cadres suffered and struggled outside the country. So they were assisted. And APLA close yona kwi-organization okuthiwa yi-KIPLA. The same KIPLA as ixesha lihamba bathi in a close ties with Al-Qaeda. It's like the MK, EPAC, ANC, nezinye organizations were declared terrorist organizations by the government of South Africa back then. They were terrorists, like government declared them as terrorists. They were not organizations as azilwela i-freedom. So that's what happened even kwi-organization ezifana neKIPLA. Umuntu uzazi as terrorists, but they know what they're doing. They know what they're fighting for. And the Western world knows exactly what they are fighting for. So this guy came back with that anger, that instead of doing what you went abroad to, you brought drugs into our community back to South Africa. When we figure Cape Town, truly speaking, drugs are everywhere. And they decided to form that organization called People Against Gangsterism and Drugs to fight against these activities. So I knew, because ababantu ngaba basi-influensayo, yabona sithatha ipolitiki kobo, so bayasixelela ngezinto and they equip us with these things. That's how my hatred, deep hatred, started. I mean, when it comes to drugs and gangsterism, because where there is gangsterism, there is drugs. Where there is drugs, there is gangsterism. And I went to stay with my mother's sister. I was now fully in curriculum operations at PAGAT because I had friends, close friends as PAGAT, and I would give them information. Kunzima in the back then, especially in about 96, 97, 98, it was bad in the Western Cape. Kuna bombings, kuna like explosives and stuff, and kuna shooting amaninzi. ayikhona. And most people were like, they khala ngephakathi ukuthi phakathi is really getting. Phakathi was just responding. Phakathi never went out for a shooting spree. The gangsters were targeting members of the Phakathi in the safety of their own homes. That's how now Phakathi decided to have a military wing, which is going to be like the front line now, because no one will just fold hands and do nothing when the killers and destroyers of our society attacks. And I told myself, I'm not going to fail myself. No one is going to. Akomzan biases estradin. I will fight. And I did that. I'm sorry that there were casualties sometimes, or kunabantu abalinyelelwe abonyana babo. I'm very sorry for that. I remember there was this operation Sasikuyo, some kuma farms as a PAL, in the Western Cape. There was a lady that was identified up at Johannesburg International Airport, trafficking drugs, and she was followed into a certain hotel in PE, and she was approached. She confessed and showed us what she was carrying is not actual drug, but the chemical ehlanganiswayo kwakusenziwa drugs, cocaine. So there is a farm eyenza lama drugs somewhere in the Western Cape. So we got all the information and then we let her go. We did our own investigation. We find everything. We form a part and then we went when we get there. But what surprised me, when we surrounded the place, we found 25 liters cocaine ready, I7, ready, pure, ready for distribution. But the most surprising part of it all, there were 2 police vehicles. There were 4 police with uniform, with their police identity cards. And we made them to surrender. We searched them. We find identity cards, but these are real police. They are not Buka police. Marked police vehicles. They were escorting vehicles that were transporting drugs from this distribution point to another distributing point. That's when I realized that we're in trouble when it comes to drug in this country. Before we know, the drugs disappear. They are nowhere to be found. And the case has to be struck off the roll because there is no evidence that these people were arrested with drugs. And we were like of the opinion that the reason why these gangsters are so powerful is because they've got a lot of money. A gangster with money is a very powerful and dangerous gangster. Yeah, and then it was a situation of let's interfere with their operations most of the time. To make them weaker, let's interfere with their operations so that they cannot have enough money. In order for them to purchase serious and dangerous weapons, they need money. And if you sabotage them, then they won't be as dangerous as they are. But in that process now, they fought back and they were very brutal. They killed a lot of people, families, and we had to say, we are going to fight back. In fact, Phakathi fought back until the police caught me and tortured me for 4 days because they were demanding rifles and scientific explosive. Okay, they raided and then find nothing and then put something on me, take me to one of their vehicles, gone for 5 days. No one knew at home where I was. And I didn't even know where I was. In order for me to survive, I was brutally attacked by the police. I used to say, even in my book, I mentioned that if I knew anything about what they were looking for, I would have snapped. I would have just told them because there was just no way for me to withstand the torture that I was going through. And they were beating me almost every day. It was bad. I was young. In order for me to survive, I have to attack 2 of them in a police station and escape. Kwakukusasa, they were just bringing me for the second time to bring me breakfast. And I made a plan. I planned my escape. And I grabbed one of them. One of them was not having a gun. One of them was having a gun. And I went in the police station. I fake magazine firearm for fear of such things. I did what I had to do. And get hold of the gun, grab the gun from behind, and got the magazine. I locked them up in the cell and went to a reception and then went away and ran and escaped from the police station. From that day forward, I became the person that I hated even to think about, even today. That is why you find in my book a part that says a system turned me into a criminal. It's painful to go to prison for protecting people. So never worry about ukujikelwa ngabantu if you know that you are doing the right thing. We cannot have a situation where drug dealers are so comfortable in this country. Otherwise, we'll be having a youth that does not have a direction. So I urge each and every youngster out there to go out and protect themselves. To protect yourself is just to stay away from drugs. You'll be protecting yourself. Tetanga next if I didn't ask fathers out there to be fathers to their kids. The most serious disease that this country is suffering from is our kids feeling unloved and uncared for. We need to close that gap. We need to be fathers. I grew up without my biological father. I know how it feels. A father plays a huge role with development. A mother can be there and do everything, but a boy child needs a father to function well. Otherwise, siyawufumana as monsters. Let's love these guys and make sure ukuthi sibanikeza direction right. There is a lot of anger out there, and anger destroys. I don't know why anger management is not prioritized even esikolweni. Go rough out there too much, man. Regrets still weighs heavily on my shoulders up to this very day. When I think of the direction impilo yami ngiyithathile, my tears just welled up, my eyes welled up with tears, because I know exactly who I was and what was my purpose. I was never confused, but it was a decision making.
Incwadi lezo umuntu mangabe azifuna zitholakala laphi?
Okwangoku sazithola direct kum.
Wena utholakala laphi?
Eric Gilly, author. My number is already out there. I don't have a problem to give up my number as long as someone is going to talk about what we're talking about now, not ezinye izinto nje I don't have a problem with that.